Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be explaining how Razor is so cracked and OP and why you need to roll for him in the new banner right now. So if you haven't even got him, he's a really good main DPS dealer and he wields a claymore and he's also an electro element. He's also 4-star, so you can get him really easily, as well as all of his other constellations, which can cause superconduct and more elemental reactions pretty easily. So I'll be explaining his talents, constellations, skills, abilities, and his weapon choices, and also recommended artifacts. He's a really good physical DPS damage dealer, and he can support your team and be the main damage dealer. In terms of his constellations, you don't really need like any of his constellations for him to be super good. It's not really a necessity, unlike let's say Barbara's constellation 1 where she can energy recharge. But in the case of Razor's constellation 1, it doesn't really affect the damage. Only 10%, it's not that much. Although it is quite good to have him at constellation level 4 when his attacks decrease enemies' defense by 15%. That's really good, but if you don't have him at constellation level 4, don't stress, he's still gonna do a ton of damage for you and your team. This is true especially paired with any of the elemental reactions like Mona or Ice for superconduct. Although for his talents, you should always aim to upgrade the talents, the weapons, and the character first. Don't focus on the artifacts. In terms of his physical attack, he is a claymore user and can perform up to 4 consecutive strikes, just like other claymore users. Although his charge attack is mostly the same with the spinning attack and ending with a really big swing. His burst uses an electro slash with his claymore that deals electro damage to the enemy. And he can also produce up to 3 elemental electric orbs around him, which increases his energy recharge rate. So when these elemental orbs appear, you'll be able to recharge your E and Q even quicker. So he can be kept on the field even longer with his DPS, main DPS attribute. For the ultimate, he has the ability of Lightning Fang, and this can make him turn into a wolf and use the wolf's claws as a fighting weapon. This ultimate inflicts a Razor-like creature on top of Razor, and you can also chain it with Razor's E for even more elemental damage. So he inflicts physical and elemental damage, as you can see, and he can bypass any guy's shields. This can dramatically increase the electro damage, and it also raises Razor's attack speed. What's so good about this is that he ignores every enemy's knockback effect, so he can keep attacking no matter what. As a bonus, after his Q ends, he will recharge 10 energy, so he can keep on just having his E and Q out in the party. This is why he's the perfect DPS. You don't have to worry about his energy recharge, you can just focus all of his artifacts on attack. Just pure physical attack, and some elemental mastery as well because of its claws. It also increases Razor's immunity to electro damage, but one downside is that when you cast his Q and E, when you switch to a different character to the team to attempt to apply elemental reactions, his Q and E will end. So he's a pretty selfish character in terms of damage, but he can inflict a lot of damage when he's just by himself. So if you're the type of player who just likes to monkey brain auto attack enemies and just cause them to die quickly, then Razor is for you, although he cannot make a lot of elemental reactions. So to summarize, his one downside is that he can't contribute to the team as well as, so let's say, Fischl with her Oz, and he can't cast any skill that helps other teammates in the battlefield. In terms of his passive talents, his Wolf Sprint decreases your sprinting stamina consumption for your own party members by 20%, although this is not stackable with, let's say, food items. This is still a really good adventuring talent. For his other passive talent, his Hunger, when Razor's energy is below 50%, it increases energy recharge by 30%. This essentially makes it so that your Q and E is always active as a DPS character. This is very important to deal maximum damage. His other passive talent is Awakening, which decreases the Claw and Thunder's cooldown by 18%, and using Lightning Fang resets the cooldown of Claw and Thunder. This only unlocks at character at level 70, and all these unlocks when you progress through the character level. So aim to at least upgrade Razor to level 70 to unlock his passive talent Awakening. This reduces the cooldown and makes sure that your Q&E is always available. In terms of weapons, the best weapon for Razor is Wolf's Gravestone, although if you don't have Wolf's Gravestone, Prototype Ammonus is also a really good sword. I personally have Prototype Ammonus because it's really accessible to craft from the weaponsmith. You can get a free claymore in-game by completing the quests. So for Prototype Ammonus, its base attack can be 500 plus if you've leveled it up to level 90, which is the max level. I also recommend you to refine Prototype Ammonus to at least refinement rank 2, because for the sword's attributes, on hit, normal or charge attacks have a 50% chance to deal an additional 300% attack damage to enemies within AoE field. So this inflicts an AoE damage that has 300% of Razor's base attack. This is pretty OP. Prototype Ammonus and Wolf's Gravestone also have a substat of attack percentage, which also boosts your attack by a lot. This is especially important if you want to build Razor as a main DPS, which all of you should. If you want a good 3-star alternative, you can choose the Skyraider Greatsword, which has a physical damage bonus substat. You can also use the Debate Club as it has an attack substat, although make sure when you're crafting, do not craft the White Line as it gives a defense substat and you don't want that for your main DPS. This is only good for Noel and all other defense users, but for Razor, he's mainly a DPS and attack, so craft the Prototype Ammonus instead. So in terms of artifacts for Razor, it actually depends on if you want to make Razor a physical damage dealer or an elemental electro DPS. So if you want to make it electro DPS, you want to equip the Thundering Fury set or the Thunder Suitor set. So the Thunder Suitor is a little bit worse than Thundering Fury just because it doesn't deal as much damage. So for the Thundering Fury, it increases electro damage bonus by 15% if you have a 2-piece, and if you have a 4-piece, it increases damage caused by Overload, Electro Charge, and Superconduct, and all the other elemental reaction combos by 40% damage. If you trigger those effects, it also decreases elemental skill cooldown by 1 second. This is really good for Razor because you want his Q and E to be on at all times. For the 2-piece, it increases electro resistance by 40%, and for the 4-piece, it increases damage against enemies affected by electro by 35%. So overall, Thundering Fury is your best bet. Alternatively, if you want a combination of physical damage and electro damage, your best bet is to equip Gladiator's Intoxication and all the other Gladiator artifacts. So what this does is, for the 2-piece set, it increases your overall attack by 18%, and for the 4-piece set, it stacks with the 18%, so that means you get an extra 35% plus the 18% of your overall damage. So this includes electro damage, physical damage, all the other damages. So if you want to have a 4-piece set, you can have one extra Thundering Fury, preferably with electro damage bonus, just to balance it out a bit. And if you have a 2-piece set, you can have two 2-piece sets of Gladiators and Thundering Fury, plus another Bloodstained, just to increase the physical damage. Ultimately, for your Gladiator artifacts, you want to have a purely attack or physical attack main stats with crit rate, crit, and more attack percent for your substats. Lastly, if you want your Razor to be purely physical DPS, if you don't want to focus on his electro aspect, you can go for the Bloodstained series. So for the Bloodstained artifacts, for the 2-piece set, it increases your physical damage by 25%, so that's just your sword attacks. It does not increase your damage dealt by your E and your Q. For the 4-piece set, after defeating an opponent, increase charge attack damage by 50% and reduces its stamina cost to 0 for 10 seconds. This is not as good as the Gladiators, but if you want to have a 2-piece Gladiator set plus a 2-piece Bloodstain set, that's really good as well. And after you have 2 pieces of Gladiator and 2 pieces of Bloodstain, you can also equip a Thundering Fury set. You can also equip one Thundering Fury artifact with Electro DPS as its main stat for the optimal artifact build. In terms of the best party composition for Razor, it's really hard to determine like the best party setup, but what I'm rocking now is pretty good. So I have 2 Electro and 2 Hydro to make the elemental reaction supercharged. But if you want to replace Barbara for, let's say, a healer Bennett, that's that's really good as well, because then the fire can break enemy Abyss Mage shields and stuff, because Electro isn't really good for breaking enemy shield. For 2 Electro characters, Fischl and Razor is a good combo, because if you create an Electro charged elemental reaction, it has a 100% chance to generate an Electro elemental particle, and the cooldown is only 5 seconds, so the elemental particle will ensure that both Fischl and Razor will both have their E's constantly being recharged, so them two can have maximum damage. This is especially important with Razor's E and Q, which has to be up most of the time for good damage. Also, if you want the most damage out of your build, 2 fire characters will have affected by cryo for 40% less and increases attack for all of your party members by 25%. This is good for Razor because he's going to be your main damage dealer. So Razor paired with 2 fire characters, well, I have Xiangling and Bennett as a healer and Barbara as a secondary healer as well. So this is survivability and a lot of damage. If you want less healing, you can replace Barbara or Bennett with Kaya or any other ice character like Diona or Chongyong. This will create superconduct with Electro, so this is a really good elemental reaction because it provides the most damage. So overall, that is my character overview and guide for Razor. So I recommend to just experiment around with the party setups and the builds, because it's all up to your choice and it's up to your opinion to see what is best for your Razor. This is just a simple guide for you to get the best damage out of your Razor. And I also recommend switching up the parties to adapt to any circumstance. For example, you wouldn't want to take Razor if the domain wouldn't recommend Razor. For example, if the domain has a lot of Abyss Mage shields, you wouldn't want to take as much Electro characters as Fire characters, because Fire and Geo breaks a lot of shields. So overall, that is my Razor build and guide. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe and like for more videos like these. Peace.